Hello and welcome to today's B2 Level podcast. Today, we will explore a story about discovery, mystery, and personal growth. This story takes place in a modern city, but the adventure begins in an old, forgotten place that hides secrets from the past. Sophie was a graduate student studying history at the city university. She loved books, old manuscripts, and stories that were not found on the internet or in common libraries. She spent most of her days in the university library, carefully examining archives and rare collections. But one day, something unusual caught her attention. While organizing a set of ancient maps in the restricted section, Sophie noticed a small, dusty corridor behind a row of old bookshelves. She had walked past this corridor hundreds of times before, but she never saw it open. Today, however, a faint light shone through the gap. Curiosity, the strongest driver of her life, made her step closer. Pushing aside the bookshelf, Sophie discovered a narrow staircase leading downwards. The walls were covered with cobwebs, and the air smelt of dust and old paper. Her heart beat faster. She pulled out her flashlight and carefully descended the steps, expecting to find an old storage room. Instead, she entered a large hidden library. The room was massive, with towering shelves filled with books, scrolls, and manuscripts. Many were handwritten, with faded ink and leather covers. The soft glow of antique lamps illuminated the room, creating an atmosphere that felt timeless. Sophie could hardly believe her eyes. This must have been forgotten for decades, maybe even a century, she whispered to herself. She walked slowly between the shelves, touching the spines of books, feeling their texture, and imagining the lives of the people who wrote them. Some books contained diaries, some scientific notes, and others were full of mysterious symbols she had never seen before. As she explored, Sophie realized this library was not just a collection of old books. It was a record of forgotten knowledge, hidden discoveries, and untold stories. Every corner she turned revealed something new: maps of unknown regions, letters from scholars, and notes about experiments long abandoned. Suddenly, she noticed a small table in the center of the room, with a single book lying open. It was unusual because it had no cover, only a title etched in gold letters: The Secrets of Knowledge. Sophie carefully turned the pages. The writing was strange, sometimes poetic, sometimes mathematical, sometimes historical. But one thing was clear. The book hinted at knowledge that could change how people understood the past, the present, and possibly the future. Sophie realized discovering this library was not an accident. Somehow, she had been guided here by curiosity, passion, and maybe fate itself. She knew that documenting and studying these materials would take months, even years, but the challenge excited her. She began taking notes, photographing pages, and cataloging items she found particularly interesting. Time passed quickly, and Sophie lost track of hours. The hidden library became her new obsession. Each discovery sparked new questions, and each question demanded research, patience, and creativity. Sophie also reflected on her own life. She realized that her love for learning was not just about grades, assignments, or recognition. It was about curiosity, courage, and persistence. Finding the hidden library reminded her that knowledge was alive, waiting for someone brave enough to explore it. As night approached, Sophie carefully closed the book, making sure everything was in its place. She promised herself that she would return, explore further, and uncover the mysteries hidden in this extraordinary place. Walking back up the staircase, she felt a deep sense of excitement, and purpose. She knew her life had changed forever. This hidden library was not just a room full of books. It was a gateway to understanding, growth, and discovery. The next morning, Sophie could barely concentrate on her regular classes. Her mind kept returning to the hidden library and the mysterious book titled The Secrets of Knowledge. She felt a mixture of excitement, curiosity, and a slight nervousness. After all, discovering a hidden library was not something that happened every day. She arrived at the university earlier than usual, hoping that no one else had access to the restricted section. The corridor was silent, and the soft hum of fluorescent lights echoed slightly as she approached the secret door behind the bookshelf. Pushing it aside, she descended the staircase carefully, her flashlight illuminating each step. Entering the library again felt like stepping into another world. The air smelled of aged paper, leather, and dust, and Sophie could hear the soft creak of wooden floors beneath her feet. She carefully checked her notes from yesterday and then returned to the table where The Secrets of Knowledge had been left open. This time, Sophie decided to examine the book in detail. She noticed that the writing was layered, almost like it had multiple levels of meaning. Some passages appeared to be coded, with strange symbols intertwined with normal text. Other pages contained sketches of mechanical devices, complex diagrams, and strange formulas she had never seen before. Sophie spent hours deciphering the text. She wrote notes, sketched her own diagrams, and compared the formulas to modern knowledge. Slowly, she began to see patterns. The book seemed to combine history, science, philosophy, and art. It was a treasure trove of ideas that could challenge conventional thinking and inspire new discoveries. While working, Sophie heard a faint noise from the far corner of the library. She paused, holding her breath, and listened carefully. It was a soft rustling sound, like paper being moved. She turned toward it and saw a small compartment behind one of the shelves. Her heart raced. Had someone else discovered the library, or was it simply another hidden section waiting to be explored? With careful steps, Sophie approached the compartment. Inside, she found more books, each wrapped in soft cloth to protect them from dust. There were letters tied with ribbons, journals filled with sketches, and manuscripts with notes in multiple languages. She realized that this library was even bigger than she had imagined. As she examined one of the journals, Sophie discovered a story written by a scholar who had lived in the city over 100 years ago. The scholar described experiments, philosophical debates, and journeys to distant lands. Sophie felt a strong connection to this person, as if the scholar's curiosity and passion for knowledge had transcended time to reach her. Hours passed unnoticed. The sun had begun to set outside the university, casting a warm glow through a small window. Sophie leaned back, exhausted but exhilarated. She understood that this library was more than a hidden collection of books. It was a testament to human curiosity, perseverance, and the desire to understand the world. Before leaving, Sophie carefully organized the material she had studied. She marked sections that required further research, photographs she wanted to analyze later, and manuscripts she planned to share with her professors. She promised herself she would return as often as possible. Walking up the staircase to the city streets, Sophie felt the cool evening air on her face. She reflected on the responsibility she now carried. The library was not hers to own. It belonged to history, to knowledge, and to anyone willing to explore it respectfully. She realized that protecting and learning from this library was a privilege, one that required dedication and ethical responsibility. As she walked home, Sophie imagined the possibilities. Could the hidden manuscripts contain ideas that could change the way people thought about science or history? Could they inspire new inventions, solutions to modern problems, or even philosophical insights? She knew that each visit to the library would bring new surprises, challenges, and opportunities for growth. That night, Sophie wrote in her journal, "Today, I have discovered more than books. I have discovered a world of ideas, a space where knowledge waits for someone brave enough to explore it. I am humbled, inspired, and motivated. Tomorrow, I will return to continue my journey, understanding more, learning more, and honoring the wisdom hidden in this extraordinary place." Sophie went to bed, her mind alive with questions, excitement, and curiosity. She knew that the hidden library would change her life forever, guiding her toward knowledge, discovery, and personal growth in ways she had never imagined. The following morning, Sophie woke up with this sense of urgency. She had dreamed all night about the hidden library, the books, and the scholar whose journals she had discovered. Something about the mystery compelled her to return immediately, to uncover more layers of knowledge that had been concealed for decades, maybe centuries. She arrived at the university early, avoiding the usual crowds in the library. The restricted section was quiet, almost eerily so. The faint hum of lights and the subtle scent of paper and ink greeted her as she pushed open the secret door. Carefully, she descended the staircase, her flashlight illuminating the worn steps. Each step seemed to echo softly, reminding her that she was entering a space untouched by time. As Sophie entered the main chamber of the hidden library, she noticed that she was not alone. A small shadow moved in the corner of the room. Her heart skipped a beat. "Hello?" she called softly. From the shadow emerged an elderly man with a long gray beard and round spectacles. He carried a small stack of papers and wore a vest that seemed out of place in the modern city. "Ah, I see we have a new visitor," he said, his voice calm but curious. "You are the one who found the library." Sophie nodded slowly. "Yes, I think I was guided here. I found the journals, the books, everything. Who are you?" The man smiled. "I am Elias. I have been the guardian of this library for many years. My role is to ensure that knowledge is preserved and shared responsibly. Few people ever find this place, and even fewer are prepared to understand its depth." Sophie felt a mixture of awe and excitement. Elias invited her to sit and began explaining the library's history. This library was created by a collective of scholars, inventors, and thinkers. They wanted a place where knowledge could be preserved beyond time and politics. Each manuscript, each journal, each map contains ideas that were considered too advanced, too radical, or too personal to be made public. And now you have found it. Sophie listened intently, her mind racing with possibilities. She realized that the library was not just about history, it was about ideas that could change the future. She asked Elias about the scholar she had read about yesterday. Yes, he was one of the most brilliant minds of his generation. He combined philosophy, science, and art in ways that many people did not understand. You have only begun to scratch the surface of his work. With Elias's guidance, Sophie spent the day exploring deeper sections of the library. She discovered manuscripts that described inventions never built, philosophical treatises on ethics and society, and even cryptic notes that seemed to predict events centuries later. Each discovery filled her with wonder and curiosity. At one point, Sophie found a small hidden compartment in the floor. Inside, there was a chest containing letters and personal journals from the original founders of the library. She carefully examined them, reading about their dreams, fears, and aspirations. She realized that knowledge is not just facts and theories. It is the lived experience of those who seek truth, beauty, and understanding in the world. As the afternoon faded into evening, Elias spoke again. Sophie, you have a rare gift: curiosity, patience, and respect for knowledge. This library can teach you much, but it also requires discipline. You must document, analyze, and share responsibly. Knowledge is power, but also responsibility. Sophie understood that this was not merely an adventure, it was a calling. Before leaving, she made notes, photographed rare manuscripts, and carefully cataloged her findings. Walking up the staircase, she thought about how her life had changed in just a few days. The library had opened a new world for her, a world where learning was limitless, where curiosity was a compass, and where discovery was a journey rather than a destination. That night, Sophie wrote in her journal, "Today, I met the guardian of the library and learned about the responsibility of knowledge. I realized that discovering the past is not just about understanding what was, but also about shaping what can be. Tomorrow, I will return ready to explore, learn, and document the hidden treasures of this extraordinary place. I am beginning a journey that will define who I am and who I will become." The next morning, Sophie could hardly wait to return to the hidden library. Her mind was buzzing with ideas, questions, and theories about the manuscripts she had studied. She felt like every day in the library was a new adventure, a puzzle to be solved, and an opportunity to grow not only as a student, but also as a thinker and explorer. When she arrived at the university, the corridors were quiet. She carefully made her way to the restricted section and pushed aside the bookshelf to reveal the hidden staircase. The familiar scent of aged paper, ink, and dust welcomed her as she descended. Each step echoed softly, reminding her of the silence that had preserved centuries of knowledge. Sophie immediately noticed that the library seemed different today. It was as if the room itself had grown, with more shadows, more corners, and more hidden shelves than she had remembered. It reminded her that exploration was never-ending. No matter how much she discovered, there was always more to find. With Elias's guidance, Sophie began exploring a section she had not visited before. It contained ancient manuscripts on philosophy, science, and history that were written in languages she did not fully understand. Some were in Latin, others in Old Greek or a mix of scripts. Each page challenged her mind, pushing her to research, translate, and interpret. Hours passed as Sophie worked, sometimes frustrated, sometimes exhilarated. She began to understand the depth of the library's collection. It was not just a collection of books, it was a map of human thought, a record of ideas, inventions, and reflections that spanned centuries. Each manuscript was a story, a lesson, and a challenge, inviting her to learn and grow. Around mid-afternoon, Sophie noticed something unusual. One of the manuscripts had a faint golden outline around certain words. As she read them carefully, she realized that these words formed a hidden message. It was a puzzle, a code left by the original scholar. Her heart raced with excitement. She had discovered something unique, a message that no one had seen in hundreds of years. Sophie spent the next several hours decoding the message. It required patience, logic, and creativity. She combined her knowledge of languages, history, and science to understand it. Piece by piece, the message revealed the scholar's secret, a plan to create a machine that could record human thought, a device to preserve ideas for generations, long before modern technology could achieve it. The realization left Sophie in awe. The library was not just a repository of knowledge, it was a blueprint for innovation, imagination, and discovery. She understood that she had the responsibility to study, document, and eventually share this knowledge, ensuring that it was used wisely and ethically. As evening approached, Elias returned to check on her progress. He observed the golden manuscript and smiled. "You have discovered something extraordinary. Not everyone can understand it, and not everyone can see its importance. You are learning to think like a scholar, combining curiosity, critical thinking, and ethical responsibility. This is the true value of the library." Sophie nodded, feeling humbled and inspired. She carefully documented her findings, making sure to preserve the integrity of the manuscript. She realized that each discovery came with responsibility, patience, and respect for the knowledge and the people who had preserved it for so long. Before leaving, Sophie walked slowly between the towering shelves, touching the spines of ancient books and imagining the lives of the people who had created them. She understood that knowledge was alive. It existed to challenge, inspire, and guide those who sought it with care and dedication. Walking up the staircase to the quiet city streets, Sophie felt a deep sense of purpose. The hidden library had already changed her life. She knew that every visit would teach her something new, not just about the manuscripts, but about herself, her abilities, and her values. That night, she wrote in her journal, "Today I discovered a hidden message and a blueprint for innovation. The library is more than books. It is a living guide for those who are willing to explore, learn, and respect knowledge. I feel inspired, challenged, and responsible. Tomorrow, I will return, eager to continue this journey of discovery, growth, and understanding." Sophie went to sleep with her mind full of questions, ideas, and excitement. She knew that the hidden library would continue to shape her thinking, guide her learning, and inspire her for years to come.